Welcome to the Next Level Human podcast. As a human, you have a job to do. In fact, you have 4 jobs: to earn and manage money, to attain and maintain health and fitness, to build and sustain personal relationships, to find meaning and make a difference. None of these jobs are taught in school, and that is what this podcast is designed to do: to educate us all on living our most fulfilled lives through the mastery of these 4 jobs. I'm your host, Dr. Jade Teta, and I believe we are here living this life for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only: to learn, to teach, and to love. In this podcast, I will be learning, teaching, and loving right along with you. I'm grateful to have your company. Here's to our next level. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am excited, very excited to introduce you to Dr. Jordin Wiggins today. She's someone who I've been watching for a while, and her education is incredible. She's an ND like myself, but she specializes in, because, we were just talking about my demographic is mostly women, and Jordin specializes in female pleasure. And so, by the way, any of you men who are listening, hopefully
listen
your ears
up,
will perk
lean in
up.
a little more.
Listen up for sure. Jordin, you're really amazing in the way you teach. You're incredibly humble, incredibly charismatic, and talking about things that I think our culture, really just brushes under the rug. And I've been working with women in my whole career. And one of the things we'll start out with here is that I'll give you my take on this. The way I see the modern day woman is she is everything to everybody, right? Like she's managing everything in the world, managing the household, managing her career, managing her dysfunction, her partner's dysfunction, her kids' dysfunction, figuring out everything. And also, even in the bedroom, the way I see it is like they're managing that too. They're managing your orgasm. They want to make you feel well. They're managing their orgasms. They want to feel good as well. It seems like women just have this thing where they are taking care of the entire world. And sometimes I wonder, as a man, I sit there and listen, I'm going to say, how the hell are these women doing this? And so I know that you teach in this. And so I want you to kind of start where you want, because I can imagine most of the women who are my followers who are listening to this, they're caught in this world and they're probably thinking to themselves, okay, I don't know. I don't know the first thing about this. I'm managing so many damn things. What do I do to get back to this place where I can feel good in my body, feel good about my pleasure, feel good about, just doing for myself in this realm? Because it's such a core need of humans. And of course, women own this domain. It's like they're sexual artists. They are the ones who invite us into this space and help us transcend, and they're having problems transcending themselves. And so where do we start with this conversation?
And not when we are burnt out and exhausted and the pleasure centers in our brain are turned off. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I think that's a very excellent summary. I love it. That's women are coming to me in that space where they're saying, usually it's like one of 2 things, but one is my marriage is on the rocks. Like I never want to have sex. It's the last thing on the list. And I'm just, so exhausted that they're doing it to do it, but it's like routine checkbox sex where they're just doing it to get it over with, which isn't really fun for anyone.
And that right there, by the way, Jordin, that right there is something that is, again, unique to women, that they would literally give of themselves in that way. Like men don't do that.
You have no idea how heartwarming it is that you picked, that you know that and said that, because it's true that we would self-sacrifice to the point of it's like, you can have my body, you can enter me, and I don't even really feel like it. It's like just totally for your pleasure, to get it over with, to check that box, to say that they did, you know, to make their partner happy. But then then we get in this like hungry ghost dynamic where no one's satisfied, because even the partner, like their male partners, usually like they want more sex, because it's like eating junk food, you know. It's like you feel kind of full at the time, but there was no nutrients. You're not really satisfied after, because she wasn't present. She was waiting to get it over with. And like
and
that
you somehow
wasn't.
sense that.
Oh, I think totally energetically. I don't think a lot of men they would put words to it or really know that that's what they're missing, but they're looking to connect on a different level. They want her presence. They want to see her undone in her different waves of emotion or pleasure or whatever's coming up. And what man's going to say like that's what he wants, right? They're not going to say that. They're going to say they want to get it in, or whatever term they would use. But when they're missing that connection because the pleasure centers are turned off, which we can talk about, but there's this low libido, lack of desire epidemic that research says 1 in 2 women will experience sexual dysfunction in their life. I personally find that that's a lot higher. Would you say the same?
Yes, I would say that the vast majority, you know, of my female clients, that I would say it's the other way around, 2 in 1 versus 1 in 2.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree as well. And that's also the demographic that I work with. So I understand that there's a little bias there, but this is a big problem. And could you imagine if 1 in 2 men had sexual dysfunction? Like that it would.
Well, they do, but it's in a different way. It's more because they're not aware, which you already kind of alluded to. And I do think this is why, you know, men really need to listen up. Actually, when I was going to have you on, Jordin, I told a couple of my guy friends, I said, I'm having like the coolest educator on, and you have to, you know, you guys are going to need to listen to this.
And it's so funny because more and more men are reaching out. My male following is growing, which is just like, it's fascinating because I think they want the information and they want to get it from a source that they are like, okay, like this, she's talking directly to my wife or directly to my partner. Like she must get it. So they want to know how to help. And a lot of men I find are very well-intentioned. They're just as like, it's like the blind leading the blind. We've had
they're not educated.
Sexual health education. Terrible. We either didn't have it or we learned don't get an STI and don't get pregnant. Like we had reproductive health education, which was layered with shame and like it was not pleasure education. We haven't been taught.
Yeah. And then of course the porn culture, it's like people think that whole porn culture is if you're a young man, especially nowadays, like when I was coming up, they didn't have porn like they do now. It wasn't, you had to like steal your parents' magazines and stuff like that to, to even see any of that stuff. So I wonder about the kids nowadays, like my nephews who are boys oftentimes ask me about that. And I'm just like realize that's not real sex, so yeah, it's a really difficult landscape. And I do feel like women are the ones having to navigate this. It's like they're navigating it for themselves and they're navigating it for men, and men are not necessarily listening, unfortunately, and I think you're right, because there's a lot of insecurity, sort of around that, or, at least sexually, we as humans, if someone says or tries to coach us or wants to guide us, it can be, where, people go, oh my God, and they get defensive. And then what does a woman do with that?
Yes. In that delicate, even the communication part is huge, because there are people that have been married, they have children, and the wife has never orgasmed during sex. She's faked it the whole time, and their partner has no clue. No clue.
Yep.
And she is scared to death to bring it up because of how it would make him feel.
Yeah.
And that just the simple fact that only 1/3 of women reliably orgasm from penetration, like penis and vagina. The other 2/3 of women need clitoral stimulation to orgasm. But the focus for most people when they're having sex is penis and vagina.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and there's an expectation too, which puts an extra burden on the woman. It's like, I need you. That's why I say I think women are managing all of the orgasms, right? So they're just like, okay, well, I know he wants to feel special and like he accomplished something and it's a turn on to him. So I'm definitely not going to be able to have an orgasm all of the time. And therefore, so I'm managing that for him, which puts her in a whole different mental state sexually that's different than the way the man is approaching sex. So now imagine that if you're a man, right, where you're essentially that, now instead of just focusing on your own pleasure, you have to, sort of manage this whole dynamic of I have to make sure they feel accomplished and, and get them off and make them feel good. And then also, I would like to have something for myself. And of course, what you and I both know is like everyone knows, right? Men, it's like pretty much stimulation to ejaculation. Like, it's like it's pretty straightforward. And, you look at graphs on this, by the way, I know you know this, Jordin, but you look at like that men turn 15 and not, it's like 95% have orgasms and, 95% of the time. Like, and for women, it's not like that. That stuff doesn't even start to peak until 30. It's like 15 years later, and then it's not nearly as reliable. And I do think that, women, that's why I like what you're doing, because I feel like men and women both need to understand that. I don't think that they do. And so that then they feel like, am I broken?
Total blaming of themselves. Women come to me with such shame, like there's something wrong with me. What am I doing wrong? Or I just must not orgasm during sex, because I actually think with proper education, we could change those graphs. Like there's no reason why a 25-year-old female couldn't have multiple orgasms in a sexual encounter. I bet you same sex, like women with women, the graph would look totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Because the focus is pleasure. The focus is not penetration. And
they understand the dynamics of the female body. Let's unpack this a little bit. I would love to know I would love to know the mechanism here. And maybe I'll give you sort of my hypothesis and you can correct me and be like,
yes,
Jade,
I'm intrigued.
Jade, you're wrong, or, Jade, you're right. And, just educate me on this. But, I've never had a female orgasm. I don't know what that is like, but I do know physiologically speaking that, we have threat mode, we have striving mode, and then we have rest and recovery mode. And so if you're, to me, the way I look at it, it's like, okay, maybe you're not in danger. And by the way, just for people to kind of hear this to me, I go like this. Let's say we're out on the plains of Africa, right? And we see a lion. We're going to be in threat mode because we see the lion. Now, if the lion goes away, right, just because the lion has gone away, okay, we're no longer in threat mode, but we're still in striving mode because we're looking and being like, maybe the lion's coming back. It's not until we get in the house, and we're safe that we go, okay, now I can rest and relax. And my theory goes like this, that most women are either in threat and striving mode for many reasons because of all the things that you and I just unpacked in terms of the overwhelm, the managing all the things. And so they don't get in the house. So they're either threat mode or striving mode. And to me, I go, well, if you're not in rest and recovery mode and relaxation mode, how are you going to turn on that parasympathetic relaxation so you can even get in that feeling place and that deep sensuality that you want to experience? And so that's my theory. Now, where am I wrong on this? Where am I right? What other things do we need to be aware of?
I heard everything right, and I wrote a book about it. the pink canary. But that's
so
like
that
high level. You got that correct. They have done MRIs on people's brains that when they are stressed, the pleasure centers in their brain are turned off or not as active. And how that translates in real life is, you know, your partner, you're washing dishes and your partner comes up behind you to grab your butt or give you a hug, and you're like, get away from me. Or you're looking at the clock during sex, waiting for it to be over. Like, touch is not as pleasurable. Your orgasms aren't as pleasurable, though, because those pleasure centers in your brain are off when you're in fight or strive mode. And like you mentioned, just with women and what they do and how much they manage, how much of the invisible workload is on their plate. Like they're constantly going. They don't get to like coming home in the house. That isn't a safe place. That isn't, okay, now I get to relax for my day. Now it's like, there's 100 other things. My second job is now starting. So most women, that part of their brain's turned off. And that's what I'm working to do, is to teach them how to get it back on. How can they have the career and manage the things and also be able to access that part of their brain? And sadly, it is we have to micro dose it. Like we have to stepwise get them to receiving more pleasure, more good, like to turn off that fight, flight, freeze, and get them into that parasympathetic state where they feel good and they want to feel. And this is in and out of the bedroom. So I'll have women that say like, I just don't feel like myself. I used to be funny. I used to have more friends. Like I'm just like exhausted. I just don't. I'll cancel plans if I make them. Like I'm just, they're flat. And that's a sign to me that their pleasure centers are off.
We'll be back after a quick break.
All right. Well, I have a new partnership to announce that I am very excited about. And this partnership is with the next level human company, ButcherBox. I consider them a next level human company because they are doing everything they can to source the best quality meats, as well as source those meats from companies and farmers that are committed to sustainable and regenerative animal husbandry, raising animals in the way that they are naturally supposed to be raised and doing right by the environment. And it is just what it sounds like, a butcher box. Imagine you had a butcher right down the street from you that put a box together for you of all the best quality meats that you could find. And that is what ButcherBox does. They send them frozen right to your door. And the animals are the highest quality. 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef, never given antibiotics or hormones, humanely raised. Grass-fed beef is an incredible source of omega-3 acids, vitamins, and minerals. It is one of the healthiest foods on the planet. Not only is the beef superior, but they also raise crate-free pork that are humanely raised. Also, never with antibiotics or hormones in any of their meats. They also really pay special attention to their chicken. These are pasture-raised chicken, heirloom breeds. This means ancient breeds, wild breeds. They never give them antibiotics or hormones, and these are free-ranging animals that can run out in the pasture and eat all of the worms and bugs and everything else to make their meat incredibly healthy. And they also do free-range turkey and wild-caught seafood. And this seafood is wild-caught, sustainably harvested, no artificial coloring, no additives, just straight from the sea. Your health is going to get better, and it is much better for the environment. If you want to get involved, there are two ways to do this. One, you can go to drj.com/butcherbox, and you can choose between 3 curated boxes, or you can do what I do, which is make your own box. That's drjade.com/butcherbox. And when you sign up using that link, you can choose between a free year of salmon, a free year of ground beef, or a free year of chicken breast. I love ButcherBox. I use them myself. I am so excited that they are now sponsoring the podcast. drjade.com/ButcherBox. And let's get back to the show. Yeah, I know it's interesting, Jordin. To me, this is kind of like, tell me what you think about this, because it feels like almost a catch-22, right? Like, because, okay, so now you, as a woman, you're listening to someone like Jordin and you go, okay, I have to begin to rest, recover, relax, but you got a partner, right? And now you have to teach this partner, like,
so then there's rage. So then they're almost like,
why doesn't
like
he just
I've
know?
got something else to do. Yeah, now I have to do something else. So once there's this almost like realization and this unpacking of like, now I have more work to do. They're mad. And of course they're mad. I was mad too when I figured it out. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, but I find that relationships and desire are they're feminine led. Mm-hmm. And I just find that that's like a universal reality that when we accept, that's great. And what we also have to accept is this is the dynamic that we've created. Unless you want to blow up your relationship or your partnership and go find something different now that you have the realization, which is not the option that most of the people are coming to me for. They're coming to me like, how do I heal what's already here? How do we shift that? Like revive that dynamic. So it's interesting, but it's also, once we can, feel the feelings, process the anger, and sometimes it's not even directed at our partners. Like some of it is, but some of it's just society and the roles that we've allowed each other to fall into and expectations of a partnership. Like a lot of people don't talk about these things before they get together. It's just sort of like, okay, well, my parents did it this way and your parents did it that way. And we just sort of fall into this dynamic without being conscious or intentional about it, or without like, men realizing, okay, you want more sex. Well, she needs to feel safe first. So if she doesn't feel safe, then you're not going to get as much of what you want. So, but it's interesting because when we go by female desire, it leads to more for everyone, more pleasure for everybody.
Yeah. So tell me where this starts. And actually, it's really interesting, right? Like you were saying that, a lot more men. I can't remember if we were offline or online when you said it, I think, but you said there's a lot more men coming to you now. Right. And maybe that's the thing, right? Because it almost sounds like, and that's why I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's almost like a catch-22 because the men need to be educated and the woman should not be, they have to, it sucks, but they shouldn't have to be the ones to educate the man, especially when there's one more thing on their to-do list. And so maybe it's a really good thing that men are starting to come your way. It's funny because there's a book that I love that's called Come As You Are. I'm sure you know it, Emily Nagoski.
Yes.
And
great. She just came out with a new one.
Did she?
Week. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, I can't wait either. But it's funny, it's a book. She wrote that book for women. I tell all my guy friends, like it is required reading for men. And the men who have read that, I think it has fundamentally changed the dynamic and relationship they have with their women. And so it is really tough, right? Because this is like, of course, we're talking, everyone should forgive me because I'm a cis heterosexual male. So I know it's not just male, female dynamics, but then that's where I come from because that's my experience. But in that particular case, it just seems like if you are cis hetero and you're dealing with a man, that he's got to be on board in some way, shape, or form. Or can this be done alone? Like, can a woman actually do this work by herself? I'm just curious, like, how successful are your clients when they have to go at this alone without their partner involved?
Well, that's the majority of the cases that I've worked with for the last 5 years. Like specifically teaching this stuff on sex, pleasure, and intimacy. It has just been with the woman. But when she has a receptive partner, they like the benefits are so much faster.
Sky's the limit, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because then there's like two people growing together as opposed to one. But the way I do it is like we're giving the woman the education about herself, about her body. She's exploring her desires. Because that's the other thing is everybody's trying to get back to the sex that they were having when they first met or the sex that they were having when they were 20. And like your body's changed, your hormones have changed, what you desire has changed, what your needs, your nervous system. Like there's just sex isn't stagnant, but that's what everyone thinks. Like, oh, well, I just want to get back to that. Like when we first met and hormonally, and this is explained in my book too, it's not like that in long-term relationship. The dopamine and the norepinephrine, like those hormone release when it's a new relationship, very, very different. Like we're creating oxytocin connection. It's a different level of intimacy. So those people that are trying to constantly get back to this or like, oh, well, this used to turn her on or this used to work. Like, yeah, okay, 10 years ago, very different now. Like, so, but there's a beauty in that because if we can accept it, that desire should evolve and change, then it creates that newness or that element where it's not going to get boring or stagnant because your sex is going to evolve and deepen. And the things that you can try together are, you know, you can order way more things off the menu over time when you are safe and connected and have communication and understand about like energy play and BDSM dynamics. Like there's just so many things that we can do, but people are stuck doing the same things. The checkbox over and over. It's boring.
Okay, so this is, I guess, so now we're kind of adding a layer onto this, right? So the layer one, if we are listening to Jordin, is like, hey, we have to get you into rest, sort of recovery mode, and what's really interesting, I think, for men is that's most of the things going on outside of the bedroom that even allow, like obviously getting in the bedroom for a man might be like, well, let's make love and that's going to reduce your stress. Well, I don't think that might be the truth for you as a man, but it's not true for the woman necessarily. So there's things that have to be going on outside of the bedroom to help you as a woman become more rest and recovery oriented, which like, you know, then my head starts going. So like literally then me, you know, like if I have a partner, right. And and this is a question to you, by the way, like you can kind of beat up on me and be like, Jade, you got it wrong or Jade, you got it right. But if I'm listening to what you're saying, it's like, okay, well then when you come home from work, you know, let's say we have a little one too, right. I don't have kids, you know, but let's say we did. And, you know, you come home from work and the nanny sort of goes away and I come home, right? And then there's dishes to be done and there's, you know, other things. It's like rather than me being like, okay, babe, you know, take care of the dishes or, you know, do the cooking or whatever, then I have to be aware, like a woman would be aware that these things need to be done. And I need to show up in a way and be like, okay, if she's got 10 things on her plate, I really should try to figure out how to make her life easier in a way. So she has, you know, 8 things and I got 4 things. So I can add a couple things to my plate and maybe that takes some of the to-do list out of her head. Because, you know, I think what you're educating, which I don't always think about this because my brain doesn't work like this, is that women seem to have to-do lists all through their head and they're thinking about constantly. All these checklists. So if I'm able to take some of those off and do it naturally, like I'm, you know, like, hey babe, why don't you relax? Like I'll go to the grocery store. You should like, you know, jump in the sauna or get a workout in or do whatever you need to do for you. Is this where things need to start outside of the bedroom? And as a woman, then how do you clue your man into that to let them know that, hey, by the way, when you do the dishes, you know, and take out the trash and actually run to the grocery store without being asked, when you do those things and when you're the one who like says, hey, we need milk and we need this and we need that, that gives me the space to want to go down on you later, right?
Yes.
Like
yes,
in a sense,
that equals more blowjobs.
Yeah. Doing the dishes. I'm gonna text that out to my guy friends. Yeah, I'm gonna be like, hey guys, just so you know.
Yes. Well, and then but then we get in this whole other layer. Like it's like messy, and I mean, I'm working on not loving mess, but so we have men and they're well-intentioned and they're like, yeah, like I want to help my wife feel less stressed and I want to connect and show her how much I love her physically. But then sometimes he goes to take the things off her to-do list. But then because of how we've been conditioned as women, as a society, we pick up on that as a failure. We are failing as a wife. We are failing as a mother. So then her claws are going to come out, right? So there's so much story and stuckness and meaning that we make of it all.
So it's not just asking, it's learning to receive.
Yes, which is what I also have to teach women. And then the man goes like, what the hell?
Yeah, because the way
like,
we
I just offered to help.
Yeah.
I just did. Like, why is she down my throat? I just did something nice. So it's like, and this is why the tips online and stuff don't work. Like if Cosmo would have solved our sex problems and like our relationship problems would have been, solved by the communication scripts that we're seeing from relationship therapists that you've saved and like, it's just because it's so layered, which I find fascinating, and that's why really we do need both parties to shift this. Like I have accepted the challenge of how can I help with just working with the woman. And it does work, but it's obviously way, way easier if their partner is receptive and understanding these things as well. But that's why I have like handouts and things in my program, because she'll do it and learn about herself and her body, and then he can do it and they can look at each other's, and then now they have this whole new understanding. And he's saying, like if she's saying no or turning me down or whatever, it's not a rejection. It's not because she doesn't want it. It's just because of these other things. So it gives them this whole new like language and way to relate. So that's kind of how I shifted on both sides, is my handouts and the dynamics, and really just giving women permission for their pleasure.
You said something in there, Jordin, that's that does dovetail into some of my work in terms of rewriting people's programming. It's like it's literally like, so step one is get out of threat and strive mode, the way I would put it, and like you have to pay attention to that. But then there's this idea that you said where it's like you have to change your stories in regards to how you are seeing yourself as a failure, as a good, what is a wife supposed to do? What's a good lover as a female? Like what's a good lover as a male? Like to me, it's like, there's so many stories that are buried here that really that seems like it's step two. You're dismantling these stories, and it sounds like you're coaching the women you work with and the men you work with to essentially reprogram their cultural narratives around sex. And it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like that does this have to be done first, or is it done right along with, some of the coaching you do about, because, I do want to get into, of course, the juicy stuff that most people think they want. Like, what do you do in the bedroom? How do you touch a woman? Like, how do you, how does a woman ask to be touched the right way? But it sounds like a lot of that stuff, if I got your Cosmo, kind of, a thing, that you dropped, where it's kind of like, well, you're thinking you're jumping the gun, it seems like, because there's these two big things that Dr. Wiggins is telling us, that it's like, first you have to, get rid of this constant stress. Second, you have to start dismantling these stories. And then I'm wondering, like, what's next? What's the third step then? Is it then once you start doing that, do you start, with practicing intimacy in a different way, or is there another level there?
Then it's desire, ask, receive. Mm. So we need to work on what are our desires. And that's a little bit where technique comes in, but also a lot of us have to learn it for ourselves because we are so overgiving, naturally kind of caregiving that we want our partners to have pleasure. So we've so focused on that and not learned how to receive it for ourselves. So a lot of the women that I work with, like for them to receive pleasure or, teach them to have multiple orgasms, squirt, whatever, which is like down the road. And that's never their primary goal, but it ends up happening when we go through this process because they've learned how to receive. But when things start to really feel good, they check out. Like they get out of their bodies and go into their heads. So teaching them how to be present with that high sensation is really important. But how do they even know what that is or know what they desire? Like, how does their thighs like to be touched? How, their butt, and does it change throughout the month with their cycle? Like all explorations that most women have never done, and even really men probably to that point. Like we're just so focused on genitals and this like script about sex and how it goes from Hollywood or porn that we miss an opportunity for so much intimacy and connection. So it's learning about what they desire, then it's learning about how to ask for it, and that's in and out of the bedroom. And then can they receive it? Because that's another big block, that even once they're learning what they want and then finding the voice to ask, and it's again in and out of the bedroom, because they could be asking for help. It could be like, I'm so overwhelmed today. Can you just, rub my feet and listen to me complain for 10 minutes? Like that could be an ask, but also to feel good and allow herself to receive whatever she's asking for is a big block, because then we have the guilt and then we have the story. So it's all, and it's, we're talking about it in a linear way. Sometimes it's coming up at the same time, but that's sort of the order that I teach it and the order that it seems to work.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, everybody, jumping into the show real quick to talk about one of our sponsors. This is one of my favorite sponsors. You've heard about it, AG1 by Athletic Greens. Now, why do I love this product so much? Well, first of all, one of the things that I was doing prior to AG1 was I was doing a multivitamin. I was doing a probiotic. I was taking a fiber supplement. I was taking adaptogens, and I was taking a greens drink. And of course, I take other supplements, but AG1, one of the things that's so powerful about this greens product is that it is a multivitamin, prebiotic, probiotic. It has adaptogens in it, and it acts as my greens drink. So when I started taking this, I had 5 supplements that I could essentially get rid of just for this one. So there were a lot of savings there. But the other thing about this product, and many of you know this about me, is I am not somebody, unfortunately, and I know I'm in the health and fitness space, and it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I'm not somebody who loves vegetables. I don't always get my greens in. And so I want the extra assurance of all those polyphenols and all those plant chemicals that really bioflavonoids and all the rest that really bring health benefits to us. And these things are loaded in AG1. And so I add this into my water. And believe it or not, I add it into my protein shakes as well because it has such a neutral flavor. And one of the reasons I started using AG1, just as a reminder, is other greens drinks that use tapioca starch and things like that will elevate my blood sugars. Now, AG1 does not do that. And it's got this very neutral flavor, so I can stick it in my protein shakes and take it in water as well. The other thing I love about AG1 is they're fanatical about testing. They are NSF certified. That's the National Sanitation Foundation. And they test for heavy metals. They test for persistent organic pollutants. They test for all other harmful chemicals of industry. And here's the thing. The fact of the matter is this testing is not cheap. And so a lot of people don't do this. And if you think you are safe, just go to consumerlabs.com or any of these organizations that are testing products, and you will find out pretty quickly that a lot of these products that we think we are doing something good for our health with are not testing, and you're having heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, forever chemicals showing up in them. You know, AG1 is on their 52nd integration of this product. So they continue to innovate, they continue to tweak, they continue to make it better. It is an excessively clean product through this testing and this constant sort of reintegration and making this product better. And so I cannot recommend this product strongly enough. This is one of the ones that I think every single person should get and be taking every single day. Like I said, it's got multiple benefits. And so to make it easy for you, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of an immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/next level. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/next level to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, let's get back to the show. I love that. I love that. So let me ask you then. So is it when you begin to get into this desire phase, right? It's like know your desire, ask and receive. If I'm hearing sort of this next formula, right? It's kind of like, hey, no, so is that where women begin to explore themselves? And if that is the case, right, like they start to know their body, they start to, masturbate, they start to touch themselves in the way they want to. So, then what happens? Because I know a lot of men might be like, okay, well, I want you, but so how do women manage that, dealing with a partner? Is like, why are you doing that?
I know we always need to tell them, we're like, okay, there's going to be a little like less sex as the emotions and the frustration and the learning goes on. And then I promise it will work out better later.
Yeah. And then there's this whole thing in our culture that's really, this might be me throwing a hand grenade in the room. So just tell me, Jade.
Oh, never.
But it might be me throwing a hand grenade in the room. But one of the things about me, like my orientation, I've been through all the different romantic orientations. So for me, and a lot of people are going to find this weird, I don't know, whatever you do in your head doesn't concern me. Like if you're fantasizing about an old lover or like whatever, like reading a book and fantasizing about the guy in the book, for whatever reason, that doesn't impact me. In fact, I kind of would want to know, because I kind of find it hot. I would be like,
tell me about it.
Tell me. It tells me something about what's going on in your brain. But this is what we humans do, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm sure there's women out there who are just like, well, part of it is I'm fantasizing about, I don't know, like I think that's why 50 Shades of Grey was so popular. I'm fantasizing about this other imaginary guy that's maybe not my guy, and I can't share that with my guy because that's going to do X, Y, Z. So I guess that's the hand grenade, I guess. But all that seems like that's part of the exploration phase, right? And you have to take the guilt off of that to kind of basically, no, I'm human and I'm just exploring sexuality in the way that maybe I haven't been able to in my younger years, and it's completely normal. And I don't know why humans get upset, about that. Like I personally wouldn't take it personally now as a 50-year-old man, because I've been around the block a little bit, but I can see how people can, that would really be a problem.
There's so many hangups about it, even to the point that I don't call it masturbation. I teach self-pleasure in my courses. And sometimes it's not even about orgasm, but it's about how do you make your body feel good, even like sitting at your desk at work. Like, what can we soften? Can you soften your jaw? Can you get in touch with your pelvic floor and soften that? Because we carry a lot of tension and stress there for the most part. So, but I can't even call it masturbation because there's so many hangups, so many stories, so much meaning that we make around it. And it's interesting that you bring up 50 Shades of Grey, because it was one of my earlier podcasts, not even when I was good at podcasting yet, but it is still one of my highest downloaded episodes is my 50 Shades of Grey episode. So because that did allow women to explore or look at things in a different way. And I don't even think it was the BDSM parts. The spoiler alert. I'm just going to give away a part of the podcast, but it was because they wanted to be cared for or taken care of. Like, it wasn't even about the restraints or anything. It was just a woman, like reading a story about a woman that got to completely surrender and receive. That's what I think society is craving for women anyway, for the most part.
You know, I never read that book, you know, I think I watched part of the movie, you know, but that's interesting because I think most of us would assume, oh, it's about, you know, a man would come at it from that perspective. Oh, a woman is like,
maybe I should get some handcuffs. And it's
no,
and bro,
saying, no.
No.
It's like, it's all about the fact that she was taken care of and could just let go.
Like, I got a tingle with you saying that. Yes.
That's amazing.
So would most women. 'Cause we're in that survival. And if we could feel like he's got it and he's going to take care of it, and we can like actually surrender, and the kids won't get left at school, and things will be done and taken care of. Like, so that was my hypothesis. And I think I must be right based on the number of downloads that episode has. And I mean, there are some issues that I have with that series and like consent and other stuff, which I unpack in the podcast too. But I'm definitely gonna go listen. I'm definitely gonna go listen to that particular episode. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. And then message me and let me know what you think.
Yeah, I will. You know, it's interesting because this is the first time you and I have actually met, so we haven't had this conversation. Many of my listeners, I think, who've listened to my other romantic podcasts know this, but I did about a decade ago when I came out of my marriage and went through just, you know, complete upheaval and remaking of everything. I did a survey of 2,000 women. Like, I literally would go on Tinder. I got kicked off some of these things because they were like, you shouldn't be doing this. But I did a survey in Tinder, Bumble, Match, Ashley Madison, like all of them, and asking women what they want. And, you know, obviously I was exploring and just like because of some of my mess ups. And so one of the things that you might be interested in, I think goes along with this 50 Shades of Grey thing. Like, one of the questions in there was like, what's your biggest complaint about men? And there was a psychological, like, what's your biggest, like, mental, emotional complaint? What's your biggest complaint about men sexually? And you know what it was, Jordin? Without, like, it was like something like 60, 70% selfishness in bed and mental, emotional selfishness, which I think goes partly to what you're saying. Now, this was like 2,000 plus women, and it was like, selfishness. I can't not stand a man who's selfish in bed. I cannot stand a selfish man. And it would come across in different ways: arrogance, selfishness, you know, that kind of stuff. But it really stuck with me because that was the number one thing that came out of that survey, that women have this sort of disdain for this idea of selfishness, but maybe they can't speak up. And it does go to this whole thing of like, you know, take care of me for once, you know, not just yourself.
I completely agree. And again, and these are gender roles, and it's how society's evolved. And, you know, we used to have like men worked outside of the home and women were home and took care of the kids and the cooking and the cleaning. And, you know, women didn't have agency, or they couldn't own their own homes or have their own bank accounts. So I'm not saying that this is like women couldn't leave those situations. I'm not saying that this is the correct way, but there was more of an equal role division. And she, like, the caregiving and nurturing, and like, he made the money and she did the other tasks, but that at least was reciprocal. But the women's role wasn't really respected anyway. But then, you know, fast forward and women's rights movement, which again, I'm not against these things. Like, so it's so nuanced, but then women got the opportunity to work outside the home, and they wanted that, and they wanted to have some of their own agency and everything. But at the beginning, that meant, well, you still have to take care of these tasks. So women it's like, oh, if I could go get a degree, then I'm going to find a way to get a degree and still do everything that I had to do and was expected of me at home. So our role expanded, it doubled, tripled, and men's role sort of stayed the same for the most part. And there are men out there that there is more of an equal division and that kind of thing. And sometimes I'll hear like, oh, my husband's great. He cuts the grass and he will vacuum, or he'll do these things if he's asked or if I'm away. And like, but this woman's burnt out and her nervous system, like her stress response is off the chart. And then I'll ask her, okay, so if he's so great, why do you feel so bad? Why do you feel so burnt out? And then like, they can't answer me and they're almost a little offended. And again, it's not his intent to be selfish, but there is so much of the management and the invisible workload and all of that men like are not aware of. And if it was so fucking great to stay at home or do all of these caregiving tasks, and like, why aren't men doing them? Why aren't men lining up to do this role?
Yeah, I think you're making a really, really powerful and important point that is like, it's not something we will be able to solve, but it is something that needs to be top of mind awareness. Our culture has fucked us in a sense in the way that this is developed. I was just talking to a girlfriend of mine recently who's like, she's totally single, totally happy, never been married, never had kids, and she's just kind of, me and her, talk a lot as friends, and she's just like, I love my life, but I get judged a ton for it. And so even on her side, like, you see what I mean? So culture really has this thing where it's like,
oh yeah, you're single, there's something wrong with you. Why can't you get a man? And the number of single women by choice is increasing. Yeah. And it's because they don't want another child. They don't want a selfish man, and they don't need him because they have their own money. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, but a lot of those women will work with me as well because they, like, they're successful in career. They have like so much going for them. They've achieved every goal they've set out for themselves, and they're like, but I'm missing that. Yeah.
I've had the same thing. These high performing women who essentially then come back and go, but I did potentially lose something, and I crave that, and that's the battle, sort of that they're fighting. So it's really, obviously you've unpacked this. The book, by the way, is The Pink Canary, right? Yeah. So, because obviously we could spend all day with Jordin. I do want to ask you one more question, but just don't forget to pick up her book if you're really digging, sort of where she's coming from here. The final thing I want to ask you about then is like, let's talk about sex. Like, let's talk a little bit about, so when, how does a woman, and speak to men too, I guess, like, how do we create and choose, because I think sometimes you have to create the lover you're with. You don't want to leave them. It might not be perfect. So you need to create, this lover and or choose a lover that now that you've essentially worked on getting yourself out of threat and strive mode. You've begun to, sort of manage your to-do list and ask for some help to clear some space. And you begin to get in touch with your desires, and you begin to ask and be able to receive. Now you're in a place, right, where it's like, okay, so now I'm either going to create this new lover and or choose this new lover. How does a woman go about that? Like, how does that now work?
So this I love, and I based this on Chinese medicine, like that we learned in school, and like Taoism, the Chinese study of sexuality. And and the fascinating part about this, because we want steps, right? And we want, first I do this and then I'm going to ask for this. We want it to be nice and clean. But really, if we're doing the work, it's about practicing being. So desire work in its essence or in the reality, it's not like, okay, so what do I want? Well, I want him to go down on me more, for example, because that's a common thing that women desire and don't feel comfortable asking. But again, it's because 2/3 of women don't reliably orgasm from penetration. So it's pretty safe to assume that she wants more oral. But then they've got their hangups on it. So the desires are something that are like, they're like alive and you can feel, and it's something that you can invite people into. It's not like bossy or crusty or nagging, right? Like a desire energy is creation energy. It's feminine energy, like life force energy. So when it's a true desire. So, or women will say to me, they come with these unrefined desires. Like, I want more connection. It's like, okay, great. And you've probably told your husband a million times and he's like, what the fuck is she talking about? More connection? Like, I'm here, Yeah. So we're not like speaking the same language, but when it's on an energy plane, it's different, because then like my energetic body is speaking to your energetic body. And sometimes we're using words, and sometimes we're using our body or our breath or like our senses kind of thing. And I don't want to get too like esoteric with it, but you want more connection. So what is that really? What's an ask that we can actually ask and receive so that both people like feel good about the encounter? And we just create it small from there. Let me think. Okay. So she wants
I like
more
that
oral.
idea. Yeah. I like the idea. So are you saying that, essentially you start with asks that are, maybe just like, give me a foot rub. Like that's a small, something that I desire that I want to relax. And then it's like, I don't know, just give me a massage or, take a shower with me. And so you just go up.
Desire,
and up.
ask, receive. And then we'll start small and we'll build it, because if it's like pleasure is like money, and like energetically they're very similar. So think of people that win the lottery. Statistics are that they're like broke, however many years later. And it's the same with pleasure. Like we can't receive, we can't hold because we're so closed. So it's something that we start small and we work through. And a lot of times, because we're not good, we're not in touch with our desires. So we're asking for things that we don't even really want, or we're asking for a crumb of it. So then when our male partner gives us the crumb, energetically, we're not really happy because we didn't ask for the totality of what we want. So then that leaves the woman feeling bad, and she can't even realize. She's like, well, he did what I asked, but I still feel like crap. So I don't know what's going on. And he's like, I did what she asked. I don't know what's going on. So it's this refinement process, but getting her in tune with her energy around her desire so that she can clearly communicate it. He can protect, he can provide, he can give her that thing. And then when she's happy about it, then he feels like a man. Like it puts it in its proper energy pole,
I get it. So it's almost like you're choosing, if you're with a man, it's like you're basically, what you're creating is someone who's going to listen to you, like you're like, hey babe, I need you. Like, I'm going to be very clear. So then obviously she needs to get clear within her head, and and she needs to create a man by having, it's almost like I don't know, sex boundaries or sex standards, or, and compassionately, communicating those to your man, and then allowing him to sort of step into that. Like, and then if you're choosing someone, I guess the best man then you could choose is someone who is not selfish and also is responsive to your asks, someone who you trust. And that gets me to this place where these little micro, how would you even describe them? Like in relationships where these little micro abrasive, encroachments on trust, which I would probably degrade the ability to ask. So if you're going to create a new relationship, you're going to have to, allow them to start small and trust you, and you have to trust them. And if you're choosing this from the get-go, it's like almost like your radar needs to be up of like, is he actually responsive for me? And maybe I need to ask for what I want, as uncomfortable as it is, especially if it's new. It's going to be far easier, right? And so it sounds like that's essentially what you're saying. But I like this idea, if I'm hearing you right, that it's not just like all at once. It's like, give a small thing that you really, though, are desirous about. So it's got to be a full thing.
It has to feel alive to you.
It has to feel like I really would want this, not just because, it's a small ask, but something I really want. Mm-hmm. And then and something easier than the whole shebang, but something that you really want. And then it's stepwise. And that's really interesting, the way that you do that, because that seems like that could work. And it's a psychological principle, right? We all know, despite that we're adults, like you do this with a child. Like you can essentially, it's kind of like training your dog. It
is
like
dog training.
It's kind of like
but it's for both of us, right?
Yeah.
Like, because and her trust has been eroded, and so has his. Like, there's hurt on both sides, especially if they've been in a relationship for a long time. So by doing it small like this, it bypasses all of those walls. Like it sneaks in there, So,
yeah. If I can ask you, let me just add, because I want to just make sure I understand this, because it's important, and I'm also just very interested for myself. So let's just play this out, and then I'll let you go, because I know I want to be respectful of your time. But let me play this out. So let's say, would it work something like this, right? So you ask your man for something that you really want, right? And maybe it's not even in the sexual realm, but you just ask him for something and then he shows up and does that. And then is it like, okay, I'm like dog training. Am I going to give him a reward then? Like, is it going to be like, I'm actually going to, rather than just doing this for you all the time and being completely selfish, I'm actually going to be like, you, and I know we don't like to think this way, but it's like kind of this reciprocity style of matching and going, okay, you did this, now you get a hand job, or now you get like, is it like that, or am I, is it?
It is like that in essence, but we have to be careful, because if we're going to give him something that he wants, but it makes us feel resentful as a reward, then we're going to erode what we're trying to build.
So it has to be in complete alignment with your authentic, desirous state, and something you might want to do anyway, right? So it's not just like, I'm not going to like give you, have you do something for me and then do something I don't want to do. It's like, I'm going to have you do something for me, and then I'm going to do something that I love to do for you. Is that more like it?
Yes. And it could even be your true gratitude and presence, because like if something was to be done for me and I'm truly grateful and it took some like stress off my plate, so like my shoulders are going to relax a little, I'm going to soften a little, like I'm going to look deeper into your eyes, so it could even just be a like true gratitude and presence, like you can reward them with your presence, because we don't even realize how much we're not present with each other
100%
today.
All right, so let me just do a quick review, give you a final chance to correct anything I get wrong, and then we can wrap up. So if we hear Jordin correctly, Dr. Wiggins, she's essentially starting us out. You're starting us out with this idea that we need to get out of threat mode, striving mode. Women need to learn to get into their parasympathetic sort of state.
Yes. No pleasure is going on, and you're not broken. It's just your physiology. No pleasure is going on if we're in fight or flight.
And by the way, if you follow Jordin online, she goes through a lot of this stuff a lot of the time. So she has lots of tools, tricks, and tips for you.
Yes.
So, and then part two of this, let me see if I can, okay. So part two of this is like, okay, so now you need to, go check in with your to-do list and be able to start clearing that out and becoming realistic and, sharing some of the load and, or, undoing some of your stories that I got to be everything all the time. So that's
where we start with that is, what are your desires?
Yeah.
Like, what am I desiring? Like, how do I create more space? How do I ask for more help so that I can be dropping into that parasympathetic?
Yeah. Yeah. And in that part, you also were teaching us about the idea that it's sort of like this loop, at least the way I saw it in my mind, is like, get in touch with your desire, ask, be able to receive. Get in touch with your desire, ask,
and then we're just
be able
repeating.
to receive. And then it's doom, 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 like that.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like the last part, which was really interesting for me, is then this idea of, I don't necessarily know how to, but it's sort of like a reciprocity, a sexual reciprocity style, where you're essentially allowing your partner to kind of step up and finding something that you really want and would really be amazing for you, but not the whole shebang, something, maybe on the small side. So you start with that and you begin, sort of, creating this loop in that regard and building, I guess, competence for him and trust for yourself that he steps up. And you'd want to do that with whoever, if you were with a man that's new, and or if you're trying to rework your sexual relationship with your current guy. Have I missed anything?
No, you in essence, like high level, that's it. That's the way that I found works to really shift things in a relationship, or it's a way to like really create a good new one.
And I know for many of you, you're gonna podcasts like this are always tough. I know. I would you get these complaints because you're like, oh, I want more. Well, Jordin is incredibly gracious in her teaching. So follow her on her Instagram handle. It's at Dr. Jordin Wiggins. That's Jordan with an I and Wiggins with 2 G's. So Dr. at Dr. Jordin Wiggins. Her website also is, what is it again, Jordin? So it's the pleasurecollective.com. Yep, thepleasurecollective.com. And so obviously you're getting a taste of the work. And obviously you can see how important this is. Also for you men, I mainly have a female audience, but for you men, don't worry, I'm going to do another episode just for you. And what's funny about women is they're going to be as interested in that too. So you men need to learn a lesson from that, because women will actually listen to that. So you men need to listen to this. I am going to do an episode for you because there is, men are getting it handed to them, and there are things about men that are difficult and unique, just like there are, things about women. So that will be coming. But Jordin, thank you for your work. Is there any other thing you want to leave us with, and final words?
Thank you for having me. I love that you're doing a men episode too, because these conversations are so important to have. And just, my podcast is another great
that's right.
To the Pleasure Principles podcast is another great place to deepen the understanding of everything that we chatted about today.
Yeah. And, I didn't know you had a podcast. I've been following you I must have missed that somewhere. I've just been following you on Instagram and loving your work. So I am definitely going to listen.
Shame on me
that.
for not doing my good marketing.
I know you got to market better, Jordin.
Yeah, that's on me. Well, and it's a top 2% globally in relationships.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of.
But that's bad. I'm like that. I'm like, oh shoot, that's cool. This should be front and center.
It is. Yeah, and it's like you're just a fantastic educator, incredibly humble.
Thank
and just
you.
Super charismatic. We really appreciate your work and really appreciate you being on. And just before you hang up, let me shut this off so I don't lose you, because we want to let this load up. But for all of you, thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you so much to Dr. Wiggins for her time. You have been listening to the Next Level Human podcast with Dr. Jade Teta. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe and consider leaving a review. You make the biggest difference when you pass on your lessons and inspire others. That's why reviews like this are so powerful. Your words may be the only ones that resonate for someone else. Please remember the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only. Always consult your personal physician or therapist before making any lifestyle changes. And finally, thank you for who you are in the world and the difference you make.